Hello everybody. Now quickly before I begin this video, make sure to do one small thing for me, okay? Go down right now on either your phone screen or your desktop and click subscribe with the notifications button on. Listen, I know you're so tired of hearing it. To turn the notifications on, it's so annoying. Just keep in mind that I'm not a guy coming at you with 1,000 flashy effects right now and telling you how I put like 20 child molesters against 20 prostitutes and I'm gonna have them do a battle royale. Right? Right now, I'm just talking to you about some basic rudimentary things that I noticed and some life lessons that I've learned. So it's currently 3:25 a.m. in England. I've messed up my sleep cycle, partially on accident, partially on purpose, but it has given me ample time to actually think and reflect at night, as well as work on my side projects, stuff like writing and video editing. And I think that has really given me like a leeway into, contemplating some of life's bigger issues, some of life's biggest challenges, so to say. And one of these is the fact that humans get so hung up on attachment. We love attachment. We love just sort of attaching ourselves to the results of our choices and our actions, right? So when we're very young and we go to school, we learn that if we study very hard, then we'll actually be more likely to pass our exams. If you're one of the unlucky few who was labeled a gifted student in the US and they assumed that you were smarter than you actually were and you never had to actually study for exams, that actually became a crutch later on in life. But at a very early age, the vast majority of people develop the attitude that you have to work for what you get. And then they go to work. They either do a 7 to 5 or a 9 to 5 or 9 to 7. There's so many like different schedules that they operate on, but they amount to basically the same thing. No matter where you're working a fake email job or a blue collar job in an office somewhere, or you're fixing cars, all of these things compile into like a amalgamation of the different results of your life. All of these things combine into just like a general attitude that you can have about the world. And you take that attitude into your daily life and you think, okay, well, if I work harder, that will mean that I will be more likely to succeed. My CV will look better. I'll be more likely to get a promotion. Um, I'll be more likely to get a raise. And it's around this time that most people learn that that's not truly the case. Usually when they're in their early to mid 20s. Um, and I think like sitting here at night has actually led me to contemplate the fact that, a vast majority of us, when we're sitting alone and thinking like this, we feel this immense void. And this void is not limited to not being around people. It can actually arise when you're around people. Um, the only problem is when you're around people, that void feels less significant because you feel like you're alone in a crowd. Like there's nothing really in common between you and the people around you. But more often than not, you can actually find some similarities with the people around you and develop some sort of bond. It just takes a while. Whereas if you're alone, truly alone, it feels like you can only grapple on the rest of the memories that you have of the people that were formerly in your life, and this can come across when you're thinking about like former relationships and stuff like that. And it can really gnaw at you and alter your behavior because I'm a firm believer in the fact that every single time that we're with a person, we steal a part of their personality in order to mimic that person and activate the mirror neurons and make the other person think that we're just like them, that we're the exact same person. And eventually, after the honeymoon stage, that mask falls off. But we keep a part of their personality with us for the rest of our entire life, which I think is one of the leading explanations for why people, actually, not only women, mostly men, after having multiple sexual partners, have like such a, mixed up bag of personalities. They're quite unstable. And that's because they're trying to balance all of these different people's like souls on at the same time. And it sounds like spiritual garbage bullshit. It probably is. But I think that's the easiest way of thinking about it because even when I think back to my favorite music or film soundtrack, there's a bit of every single person that I've been close to for during the duration of my comparatively short life in all of these things. And I think when we're alone, it tends to bite at us that some parts of our soul and of our heart are not really ours, they belong to other people. well, sometimes it feels like a curse to be, you know, very, very humble, of course, and I'll follow that up with it feels like a curse to be somewhat more emotionally aware than most people your age, especially if you're a guy. Because if you're a girl, then that's implied you need to have like compassion and empathy for everyone, and often that can feel overwhelming, especially when you're dealing with the amounts of pressure that girls deal with on an everyday and weekly basis. But if you're a guy, it's just like it's unmasculine in a sense to have any sort of like emotional sympathy for people or to care for people, even if you only care about two or three people in your life and you ignore the rest. I feel like the more we accelerate as a society on this backwards cultural paradigm, the more we set forward this expectation that people who are like really young should not have any sort of awareness for the outside world. They should not look out for others. When the most important thing in life really is just general relations with other human beings, whether those are romantic, whether those are platonic, whether those are like familial. Um, if you visit your parents once a year and your parents are in their 50s, you'll see your parents at most like 30 times throughout the duration of your entire life, after that. Um, your kids, if you have kids, by the time that they turn 18, you'll have spent over half of the time that you will ever spend with them. Way over half of the time, which makes sense considering that usually they live with their parents, at least partially, up until the age of 18. Because of divorce and stuff. I don't even want to talk about that because that just is just like so depressing. But to excuse my blandness, it's like because we care around the souls of all the people that we're formerly around, and men are expected to sort of like bury this burden within us. I feel like there's been this huge reckoning of guys who were just misled. Um, because you cannot expect women to really have a deep understanding of like the male mentality and of male struggles. Um, and men often take that anger out and they project their own struggles and insecurities and say that women don't actually have any struggles, which is entirely false. And I'll be the blue pill beta cuck here, as the lights around me suggest, and I'll say it right now that both men and women deal with severe emotional issues. It's just that it's a bigger expectation on women to have an ability to deal with such large emotional issues and be sort of the caretaker and the provider. And at the same time, modern society tells us that we are exactly the same people, regardless of our gender or sexual, identity, orientation, or our labels. And that provides like a problematic paradigm because we then think of ourselves as like a unit in society, first and foremost, working for Mr. Bezos or Mr. Soros. And then only after that do we think of ourselves as individual human beings who truly need to display a sense of love and care regarding each other, rather than spread misandry or misogyny. And I feel like the whole gender wars debacle is so stupid because there are many times as a man, and many women, when I tell them this, they find it outrageous. There are many times as a man that I felt that women are just not capable of like romantic love. Like that's a thought that went through my mind many, many times. I was just like, girls are not capable of romantic love whatsoever. I have not seen one evidence of this. And then I have a like female friend who is getting upset about some guy on the phone with me, and then I'm like, okay, well, maybe they have a degree of like romantic affection, but it varies from person to person. I think that's a lot closer to the truth. And then I go on the opposite side and I like go on these forums, like dealing with like relationship stuff. And then there are girls on there complaining and they're just like, I swear, like men don't care about anything. They just like, they don't care about girls at all. And they're just like, they're not even monogamous and they're not capable of love. And it's just like every single time I see a post like that, it's just like, where do you find these men? The dumpster? Like seriously, like. And I feel like there's a bias here, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, because if there's one shitty person and they break up with a new person every single month, and they date 12 people in a year, and they have like this culminating circling roster, and then there is one person who dates like a person for 2 years, then they don't find anyone for another 2 or 3 years, and they date another person for 2 years. They only have these long-term, like committed, sort of noble relationships. Well, by the 4 year mark, right, one person will have dated 48 people and the other will have dated two. And within a couple years, that escalates and becomes exponential. It's just like a mathematical growth, right? Very easy to think about, even if you're like quite young. And then eventually, the vast majority of people of said gender have a perception that all men are just like, liars, or all women are liars, or another negative perception of another gender. And it becomes a problem, especially when we're reflecting upon these things in a public circle. But I guess I'm not going to be one of those like liberals that preaches at people. What I'm mainly touching upon is the fact that we tend to project our own fears and insecurities upon other people. And I definitely feel like that set us back as a society. And it not only sets us back as a society, but it affects the sort of thing that I was talking about earlier, this feeling of theory of action. Whereas the judgments that you make about your life, they should be stooped only in intrinsic motivation. Um, the only thing that you can do to make yourself happy is to redirect your mind so that you're happy when you know that you've worked really hard. Like, because that's the only thing you have control over. Um, and then set that to be like a fluctuating pattern. So, based on the circumstances, I will work really hard. The only way you will truly be happy is if your happiness is not determined by external circumstances, like how many people like you, or how many people care about you, or how much money you have, because all that shit, it's totally useless in the grand scheme of things. It should be, how hard did I work today, and how much am I capable of, and how many things can I still do in my future? And maybe that last one's not so good because you can always age and then that number can decrease, but there's always something you can do. And if you keep these three things, or like internal judgments and thoughts about yourself in your mind, and you evaluate yourself only in the only metric that you can truly evaluate yourself and your own actions rather than your outcomes, you'll no longer like be the kid that's swaying around on a playground hoping that somebody will come and rescue them. You're now like a fully grown adult who is capable of assessing their own actions, from detaching themselves from themselves, from seeing their stuff from an impartial perspective. And actually, when you do this, the loneliness, it starts to go away. It doesn't go away immediately, it doesn't go away in an instant. But you begin seeing that the judgments that people make of you, as well as how they act towards you, is only ever a reflection of themselves rather than a reflection of you. If you were 100% confident, taking like the time frame of this past several months or a year, that everything that you did within that time frame aligned with your values and the kind of person that you are, then you know that you couldn't have done anything different. If you know that over the past 6 months, you've only been there for people and you've only tried to make people happy, and you see that your old friend group cut you off, it is quite literally, logically, their loss. And you just don't have to stress it. There's no such thing as like fumbling a baddie. There's no such thing as swinging down into like a hole that you can't repair yourself from. There's no such thing as losing out on something in life. Because if you evaluate yourself by the metric of the stuff that you did, and I want you to think really carefully about this, and you don't get what you want, then that means that the kind of person that you are was never going to get the thing that you want. So what do? You change the kind of person that you are, so that thing may come to you in the future, and you know exactly what you need to do to become the kind of person that gets that thing. You know exactly what you need to do, because that's human brains are very good necessarily at making these conclusions. Or you switch to another thing. You start wanting another thing if it seems impossible to do the first. That's all. Cry sour grapes on everything that you can't get. Everything and everyone that rejects you in life weren't worth your attention anyways. Because trust me, when you do this, along the long term, not only will these things come to you, and not only will these people respect you way, way, way more, but you will actually make yourself feel a lot better. You will feel a lot better about the type of person that you are, because you won't carry around this dread of like loss and loneliness from late at night throughout your whole day and your whole life. You'll kind of begin to feel at peace with what you have and what you have to gain still. And I feel like that's a very powerful lesson. And even right now, I'm just sort of chilling. There's owls hooting outside. It's very nice. Unfortunately, I can't show or turn around the camera because it would show around the rest of my room, and I'm just sort of like looking at the waving trees. It's almost sunrise here in England. Um, they're just sort of like sitting there. I hear the howling owls and the chirping birds. It's so nice, man. And it just, uh, I don't think the camera even picked up on that, but it's such a nice sound. And even for a broken microphone, I'm sure I can convey just how peaceful it is sometimes. And the irony of that is we sometimes dread losing people so hard, and then we cope for a long time, or we make these passive aggressive posts, and it's just like, man, your own peace and quiet is so much more important. Like, it really is. And you're doing yourself a disservice if the baseline of the shit that you tolerated from people wasn't that they help maintain your peace and quiet. If someone doesn't do at least that, then they're not capable of actually improving your life. Because think about that. If the baseline is them helping you be safe and healthy and happy and peaceful in your mind, then how can they possibly improve your life? Because they will at least hurt you on one of these aspects. So even if they do make you happy in the short term, if they're making you, stressed out or anxious, the quality of your life will just begin to go down. And it's only when you detach yourself from outcomes and from things and from people for a short time without being rude about it, without being mean about it, simply saying, like, hey, this is genuinely what I'm thinking and I need some time to myself. It's only then that you can begin to come to wisdom and to actually make these judgments about the outside world. It's not so often that I'm actually this calm about things. I'm often very stressed out, or I'm complaining, or I'm angry, or I'm stressful, or I'm like theatrical, or I put an emphasis on things. But this really is a message that I want to hammer across along all the other action of theory of action stuff that I've been putting forward on this channel, because I think it is really important for people to hear. And I hope this helped you all as well. So, in case you literally didn't listen to me at the very beginning of the video, and you don't do the things that people tell you to do, and you're part of the problem, actually, obviously fucking with you. But in case you didn't, right, go down to the subscription bar, click that, click the notification bell. I don't want to be one of those annoying pricks that tells you every single time. But please, this website doesn't work. Okay, youtube.com doesn't work. And if you're watching this anywhere else, it's probably re-uploaded there by like some Indian scammer. And you should immediately report it, because you can't re-upload my videos. That's all. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. There's a couple more guides on my channel about stuff like this, just in case you weren't aware, that may help you as well. So, I'll see you guys. Bye-bye.